Thanks for coming, everyone. Welcome to the Terra panel. A couple months ago, Terra was one of the most eagerly anticipated new shows of the TV season. Today, this epic sci-fi adventure is one of the most eagerly anticipated shows of the next TV season. The cast of Terra includes Jason O'Mara of Life on Mars, Stephen Lang of Avatar. Behind the camera, the Terra team includes executive producer Brandon Braga and producer-director Alex Graves. They're here today to talk about the show, to take your questions, and they're here to also show you a little peek, something that no one has really ever seen before, so you're the first audience to kind of get a first public glimpse of, a meaty glimpse of this new show. So with that said, let's take a look at Terra with Jason O'Mara. Our next member of our panel, his name is Stephen Lang, but you can call him Slang. Stephen Lang or Slang. Executive producer Brandon Braga. And producer-director Alex Graves. Thanks for coming, guys. I'd love to talk a little bit about the world and characters of Terra and we could start. This is a show that kind of like toggles between the future and the past, and Brandon, if you could talk a little bit about sort of like what the premise is, like as we find our characters in the future, what's going on in the future, and why do they have to time travel?
Well, it's basically a TV show unlike any other that I've been involved with. In that it takes place in the distant future and the distant past, but not the present, and intercuts between the two, which is not only really cool from a kind of a storytelling point of view, but incredibly ambitious to make because we can't use anything from now, basically. The premise is it's a dystopian future that has been destroyed by humanity. No plant life, no animal life, terrible pollution. The causes of it are unclear, but it's a bad place. And a fracture in time has been accidentally discovered at a super collider outside Chicago. And although at first it's just an anomaly and a curiosity, the people in this terrible time realize that it's possibly a escape hatch for humanity, and they find a way using this super collider technology to gradually pull the time fracture wider and wider and start sending people through. The first guy through the portal is his character, Commander Taylor. It's kind of the Neil Armstrong of the project. And he establishes Plymouth Rock 85 million years in the past in the Cretaceous era. Doesn't realize that's where it goes. They don't know why it goes there. Not the best place to resettle humanity. A lot of hostile things back there, but that's where it all begins. And they eventually start getting the portal open to send more people through, more colonists through. But they also realize it's a one-way trip. There's no going back if you go through, if you're selected to go through, or are lucky enough to win the lottery to go through. And the show basically follows the Shannon family, the father of whom is played by Jason O'Mara. And it follows their journey from their point of view, from the future into the past to what we're calling kind of a postmodern sci-fi western. And that's a long-winded way of explaining the show.
And 140 characters or less, how would you explain it?
I'm sorry. Don't ask me any more questions.
And Alex, if you could talk a little bit about, just to elaborate on that a little bit, like what's going on in the future that we have to evacuate the future and head to the past, and what's the past world like?
Sure. Well, 2149 in this story is a very dystopian future, very sort of Blade Runner-esque. It's overpolluted, it's overpopulated. It's sort of an extreme version of certain situations we're facing today, and it's one of the things that makes the show so contemporary to me is that it's people who are faced with really major potential disasters have to make a choice choice to start over or not. And our characters leave this, sort of collision of poverty and high technology, and go back to a past where they're now in new Earth, young Earth, with extremely high technology and dangers that they could never have imagined or would never have faced in the future.
Stephen, if you could talk a little bit about your character, who is he and what is he about, and how is he similar or different from the character you played in Avatar?
As Brandon pointed out, Commander Nathaniel Taylor is the first one through this wormhole. He likened him to Neil Armstrong. I think of him a little more as a Daniel Boone type, in a way that he is primarily a survivalist. He's somebody who knows how to cope with and is not afraid of highly precarious situations, and I think he's heavy on ingenuity and inventiveness. I think he's also he's a dynamic leader as well. So he has been, his history is such, it's a military history. I think he's probably got a background, I know he has a background in engineering as well. He's not a scientist per se. He is, just to deal with the Avatar comparison really quickly, he's got a military background. Yeah, he has a speech where he welcomes people to the planet, which is written into all of my contracts now. I always do a welcoming speech.
Can you say welcome to WonderCon for us? Please, come on.
Yeah, big speech.
Hello, people. You are not in San Diego. You are in the great city of San Francisco. Respect that fact every second of every day. Thank you. Don't get me started. Out there beyond that fence. Anyway. And that's the main difference, is that in Avatar, Colonel Quaritch talks like this, but Nathaniel Taylor doesn't talk like that. He's more like this. But truthfully, Taylor is truly heroic in stature. He's an idealist. He is doing everything he can to bring about the creation of a second chance civilization, which is quite different, of course, than the Avatar situation.
Jason, you are time traveling once again. I'm sorry. It's okay. I only do shows that involve time travel as part of the premise, so it's in your contract. That's right.
You play a character named Jim Shannon, and what's he about, and what's going on in his life when we first meet him in the show?
I'd love to answer those things. First of all, I just want to say this is so cool to be up here. I'm just so happy. Last time I was in San Francisco, I had my 21st birthday, and I was selling t-shirts down at Pier 39, and then I painted apartments so I could pay the rent. So to be here, promoting a big primetime Fox show executive produced by Steven Spielberg with dinosaurs in it is just awesome. So now I can answer your question. Jim Shannon, he's an ex-cop, and when we first meet him, he's escaping from jail in order to meet up with his family, who have already been handpicked to go through the time portal and join the colony. So essentially, he sort of embodies the second chance that we've been talking about, the chance to start over. He's pretty much estranged from his wife, and one of his kids barely knows him. The other kid is kind of angry that he hasn't been around. So he's got a lot going on, So when he gets there and realizes that he's going to have to somehow be reprimanded for coming through uninvited, and then figure out how this sort of relationship's going to play out, and figure out how his family's going to play out. That's kind of what he's got. So. He's a fish out of water, as we pretty much all are here, looking to Taylor for guidance, but how that guidance is going to be provided for him is going to be one of the big questions.
And what is the relationship like between your characters? Is it antagonistic? Are you like rivals, or like how can you characterize?
Not initially. I mean, you know, essentially, I become the deputy to the sheriff. But by the end of episode 2, there are the characters in the story are put on a certain path that promises conflict of some kind. We don't know what that is yet.
Yes, I think that in Shannon, Taylor recognizes a very strong potential leader figure, which is both very, very welcome to Taylor, but at the same time threatening to him. And so, and just for the sake of future story, I don't say this is necessarily how it works out, but I think it's important to recognize that if there is to be a falling out between these characters, it's extremely helpful to have them come together. You know, you need to fall away from something. So I think he enters the scenario with a shadow on him because he doesn't come in the proper way. He doesn't come, you know, according to the way it should be done, and that offends my sense of the way things should happen. But right away, I recognize him as a very, very important figure and a potential ally, or as a potential threat, somebody to be reckoned with. That's the important thing.
Brandon, a question for you about the time travel. Is this one of those time travel shows where by going back to the past, we're gonna like mess with the timeline and then change the future? Are we dealing with paradoxes, or are we sending people far enough into the past where that's not going to be an issue?
Well, this is the most commonly asked question we're getting about the show so far, which is ironic because it's this smallest component of the show, and that once the time travel happens, it's a one-way trip. People are there, they're trapped there, they ain't never going home. But there are things going on in the future, some mysterious happenings I don't want to give away, where we will be intercutting to some degree. What's the plan? Is it the butterfly effect? Are they going to try to change the future? I don't want to give that. Those questions will be answered very early on, but we're trying something a little different with the time travel that will make perfect sense, hopefully. So I don't want to give it away just yet. But there is a plan, and it does involve some paradoxical stuff, but it's kind of new and cool. I'm hoping people will tune in to find out what that is.
What are the origins of the show? Like, how did it get started? Like, why'd you want to be part of it? And what's your collaboration been like with Steven Spielberg?
Well, the show a script was written by writers named British woman named Kelly Marcel and a guy named Craig Silverstein in Hollywood. And the script had been sold to Fox Network, and they needed someone to come in and help develop it into a series and turn it into from a 1 hour into a 2 hour, and put a team together. The first part of that team being Alex, our wonderful director. And what appealed to me about it is what I said before. I do love time travel, but the mechanics of the time travel aside, which is not what the show's about, I just love the idea of a show set in 2 different time periods, neither of which are our own. That gives us not only a great visual look in terms of futuristic technology in a primeval setting, but futuristic characters trying to survive in a primeval setting. And I guess the Steven Spielberg thing didn't hurt. I would have been insane to say no. In fact, I was told by Fox, you know, we need you to take a meeting with Steven Spielberg and tell him what your take on the show would be, which was horrifically nerve-wracking. In fact, I remember sitting in the anteroom to his office where the sled from Citizen Kane, Rosebud, sat in a frame, like the actual sled. And I was thinking, I'm gonna have a nervous breakdown. He's the nicest. Alex can attest. He's the nicest guy in the world. He's a genius. So much of this show came from his brain. All the wonderful details you'll see in the show that make it seem like it could really happen. That's all Spielberg, and he's been a delight to work with.
I was going to say I had the same meeting, but the sled from Citizen Kane did not help. You just go, oh my